Paris is in north-central France on the river Seine, around the Ile de la Cité, an island in the Seine. I'll do my best to pronounce French names correctly. Please bear with me. Paris was first mentioned by Julius Caesar as Perisiorum, inhabited by the Parisii, a Celtic tribe from the Iron Age. The city was captured by Rome in 52 BCE, with Christianity introduced in the 3rd century by Saint Denis, the first bishop of Paris. Clovis, the Frank king, made Paris a capital in 508, a reasonable start date for the Middle Ages in France. Tradition has Bishop Denis martyred and buried in Paris and later granted sainthood. The Basilica of Saint Denis was built as an abbey church at that site. Early 6th century King Clovis united all the Franks, converted to Christianity, and supported the clergy. He was the first to declare allegiance with the Pope. Clergy and monks settled around Paris in large numbers. The Vikings attacked along the Seine and sacked Paris in 845, not that long after conquering London. The city built fortifications, reducing the Viking threat along the Seine, but in the meantime, Vikings captured Normandy. The Viking Rollo besieged Paris, but agreed to become a vassal of the king with the fiefdom of Normandy. That would not end well for either France or England. Hugh Capet, Count of Paris, was elected king of West Francia in 987. West Francia was a small part of the empire of Charlemagne. Capetian kings would rule France until 1328. In addition, the powerful duchies of Normandy and Burgundy were largely independent. As Count of Paris, the Ile de la Cité was his power center and increased in importance as French royal power grew. The district of Île-de-France was considered holy and a key Catholic site. Suger was the abbot of the Royal Abbey of Saint Denis and went looking for designs to rebuild the basilica. There were advancements across France, like the abbot at Cluny. The building started in 1135, using all the techniques Suger saw at different locations: pointed arches, rib vaulting, soaring vertical lines, enormous window spaces with stained glass, and flying buttresses. The completed basilica was considered the first truly Gothic building. Notre Dame was begun by Bishop Maurice de Sully on the Ile de la Cité in 1163, perhaps the most well-known Gothic cathedral in the world. Unfortunately, subject to a structural fire in 2019 and still closed for repairs. The Royal Palace was also built on the island, along with Sainte-Chapelle, another grand Gothic cathedral. Universities were one of the great inventions of the Middle Ages, beginning as advanced schools of scholarly clerics. Paris was one of the several universities of the 12th century under the auspices of the Church. Noted for theology and philosophy, scholars went off in multiple directions, including law, medicine, and arts. Thomas Aquinas, perhaps the greatest of the medieval philosophers and theologians, was both a student and teacher at the university. Abbot Suger centralized the administration of Paris. He established professional guilds, beginning with the Company of Water Merchants, given the importance of the Seine, then mercers and butchers. A market started in the 11th century in northwest Paris, where King Philip Augustus built two market halls, Les Halles, to protect the textiles, then a wall around the market. It was mainly for dry goods, but food stalls were built and became the central fresh food market of Paris. An annual trade fair started at Saint Denis in 635 with some success. Eventually, 6 fairs a year were moved to Champagne, including the city of Troyes, east of Paris on the Seine. This was a convenient spot for merchants from Italy, France, Flanders, and England. The major attraction was the growing wool and textile trade, from English wool to Italian finishing and selling across the Mediterranean. England was known for ale, but France was renowned for wine. Wine goes back to the start of civilization in the Fertile Crescent, and any number of cultures were wine drinkers, like the Romans. Some 25 or so great grapes come from French wine regions like Bordeaux, Champagne, and Burgundy. Paris could be considered the wine capital of the medieval world. The oldest Parisian vineyards were in Montmartre, named for the legendary execution spot of Saint Denis. French monasteries were major wine cultivators. After all, communion requires wine. The district around Paris was fertile, growing cereals and other crops. Parisians were bread eaters. Baguettes came from France, but later. They ate local produce. In fact, various kings required that all cereals and grapes be sold in Parisian markets. The French also loved cheeses, but preferences were by region. The list of French cheeses is now well over 1,000. Various types of Brie and Comté were Parisian favorites. According to M.F.K. Fisher, Paris was in the culinary dark ages until Pope Clement VII married off his niece, Catherine de' Medici, to Henry, who later became King Henry II. Catherine brought an army of Italian chefs with her. The Parisians mocked the strange utensils called forks, wolfing down large chunks of meat with fingers and knives. The nobles began to appreciate the elegant Italian cuisine and vied for the services of available Italian cooks, now superstar chefs. Alternatively, the French were doing fine with dining well before Catherine. Thus, another food mystery. Perfumes were ancient and used by medieval Italian nobles. When Catherine de' Medici moved to Paris, she brought her perfumer with her. Catherine may have introduced perfume to the French court. If true, that was the start of the French perfume industry, headquartered in Paris. Bad stuff paralleled London and the rest of Europe: flooding, bad harvest, and the Black Death. In addition, fighting off the English. After the defeat at Agincourt in 1415, made famous by Shakespeare, the French king abandoned Paris, and Paris was not won back until 1436. It's back to the Roman world of the East, which lasted 1,000 years after Rome fell. Next time on Food History and Mystery.